Hey everyone, it is Friday, September 23rd. The time is 6:08 p.m. and the temperature right now is a rather cool 14 degrees Celsius. And that was Bay Station I just climbed out of. And this here is Bay Street. And for this one, I'm going to make a left here at Bloor Street and walk east over to Yonge Street. And then I'll be walking south down Yonge, probably down to King Street. And I think at that point I'll call it a video. I'll head east along the north side of Bloor here. I had thoughts of walking along the south side. So this is the Yorkville neighborhood. It's almost like someone flipped a switch on the weather when fall rolled into town yesterday. It is noticeably cooler than it's been in weeks past. In fact, I don't think it's been this cool since early in springtime. And I was browsing the Toronto subreddit on my way down, and there was a post, or rather a tweet on Twitter by a user called Smooth Otherbird, who talked about how Yonge Street is basically a microcosm for all the problems facing Canada these days. And he made a lot of observations that I have made in my videos. So it'll be interesting to examine Yonge Street from that perspective. I've also been planning a walk down Yonge Street that takes a look at all the commercial developments going up. On any commercial property and condo, there's the one, which Foster and Partners has a hand in. And that'll be over 1,000 feet tall. And this is Yonge and Bloor coming up, where there's currently a scramble crossing in effect. I don't think the sun goes down for another hour, so it should be daylight throughout this Friday evening walk.
Because there's a hurricane coming.
Yeah, you know.
We'll just grab a look north up Yonge Street. So I think the gist of the tweet was everywhere you look on Yonge Street these days, there's empty storefronts. And Yonge Street is the busiest street in Canada. And the main points were that commercial rents are out of control. And it's really something that only larger and deep-pocketed businesses can afford.
I thought I could try.
And that's something I've certainly noticed. Yonge Street used to be very lively and full of a lot smaller retailers. There's a common site in the area. Cement mixers. one of the reasons small businesses are being driven out is that commercial taxes have been raised disproportionate to residential taxes, given that homeowners compromise more of the voting base. And frankly, a lot of building owners simply don't care if their units in older buildings are vacant or not, as sooner or later they'll be turned over to developers and they'll cash out on those. This is Charles Street here. And that Payless Shoes went out of business a long time ago, and that storefront is vacant. We'll see a lot of vacant storefronts on the way down. There's some on the right. And this Korean restaurant was quite good. I don't see any development proposal notices. And coming up is a building that was described as a sewer in the sky. This building is owned by the Church of Scientology, and they're currently having a dispute with the city, and it has sat vacant and run down for a very long time. There's a spot for lease across the street, and another one. And that used to be a barber shop that was quite popular. And when new developments do go up and new retail space is provided to replace the old retail space that was kicked out, it tends to be much larger, which rules out a lot of smaller businesses. And because it's new, it also tends to be a lot more expensive. So it's quite common to see new buildings sitting there with vacant retail storefronts. Again, it's mostly larger, deep-pocketed retailers that they're trying to attract. It makes sense from a business point of view to have one larger, more stable tenant who's always going to pay versus a number of smaller ones, but that's really poor zoning on the city's part, or rather poor approval. Almost everywhere you see a new condo like this one, you'll see just one or two retail spots. And if you go on Google Maps and go back several years, you'll see that there used to be, I think, about half a dozen or so along this stretch. And there's one stretch coming up that was mentioned in the tweet, and I think there used to be over a dozen retailers in that spot. And now there's just one commercial retail space. There's the 97, plus a completely empty 97.
What's the mechanism behind it?
Here's a development on the right that I think was particularly well done. There's a new condo off of Yonge Street, and what they did was they preserved the facades of the older building here on the right. But if you look at the tenants, it's a bank and a large chain cafe that isn't even open right now. Given that it's a Friday evening, that's weird. Sorry, temporarily closed. And it stinks. in that little entranceway there.
Popular one.
There's a vacant retail spot. And another. And another. And coming up is Wellesley Street. So if you're not familiar with Yonge, there's a subway line that runs underneath it. And there's a stop at Wellesley. And that used to be a Starbucks for the longest time on that corner. Despite Yonge Street losing much of its heart and soul, so to speak, it's still a rather lively and vibrant corridor. I bet the employees in that McDonald's on the right have some interesting stories to tell. There's another vacant storefront. Another one for lease. Another one. Another one. There's one across the street. Of course, the elephant in the room said a lot of businesses were devastated by the provincial restrictions put in place due to the pandemic. It's felt that, in particular, businesses in Toronto that face much higher rents weren't given anything close to adequate financial assistance during that time. They were forced to shut down while stores like Walmart and large grocery retailers could operate freely. And they were kind of left out in the cold, not able to compete or pay their bills. And that also has led to a flight of a lot of businesses. And here's the spot that was pointed out in the tweet. This used to be over a dozen retailers. Oh, it's this one large commercial space. That might actually be divided into multiple units. I'm just paraphrasing from the tweet. I like how that one steps back at least. Allows for some more sunlight to hit the street. That's a principle employed in New York City. Hello.
I watch your videos on YouTube once in a while.
Well, I'm recording one right now.
I just realized that was you walking by me.
Oh, well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Have a great night. There's a friendly viewer. And what else on the right? And that business over there has a for lease sign on it. So they failed to secure a tenant. Rather, that building. And I'm not at all opposed to new developments. In fact, Yonge Street is kind of the logical place for a high-rise corridor to go. It's along the subway line. Pretty much everything you could ever need is within walking distance. And they're eventually expanding the bike infrastructure to go along more of Yonge Street. It's kind of ridiculous and a tremendous failure of the city that There's no bike lanes along this stretch of Yonge Street. In fact, the only ones that are going in for sure, I think, are between Carlton and Queen. Somewhere around there to the south of here. But it is a logical spot to intensify. I just think the city hasn't been proactive enough in terms of protecting the type of developments along Yonge Street, not just to preserve its character, but to suppress the corporate washing over of the retail landscape that we're seeing. I think the smaller retailers, even if you think they're seedy, sort of give the city its heartbeat. And of course, it's a city that desperately needs more housing stock. And that used to be a very big second cup, which is kind of like a Canadian version of Starbucks. And of course, we do need new homes today, even if they're unaffordable, as they will eventually become the more affordable homes of tomorrow. Okay. But on the right is kind of a success story. Before this condo went up, there used to be a lower building, or a smaller building here. And there was a sports bar and grill there. And now that the new condo has opened up, Hoops has reappeared. They used to have TVs in their booths and you could watch whatever sporting event was going on. I think he even had a remote and could change it. I don't know if they still have that in the new one or not. And we're at College. Maybe I'll just stick to the west side of Yonge Street. I typically cross over to the east to avoid this construction hoarding here along the street. I think they're doing a sewer main replacement. And that intersection is where you'll find College Station. In fact, you could enter it through the College Park building on the right here. And this way leads us south to the busiest and most vibrant part of Yonge Street, right around Yonge and Dundas. And that is why I usually walk along the east side of Yonge Street for this stretch. I don't think it's inaccurate to compare Yonge Street to Broadway in New York.
That's it.
In fact, both streets not just have theaters, but they have a similar history. In the 70s and 80s, they both weren't considered to be the most family-friendly of places. There was a lot of crime and street workers and just general seediness. And both cities have cleaned that up, although I think New York has probably done a bit better of a job than Toronto. And this is the kind of new retail development we get. Just large spaces full of banks. There used to be a Bed Bath & Beyond in here, and an IKEA moved in recently. There's the future home of Concord Sky. And of course, the retail landscape has changed quite a bit since cannabis stores have started to take over. This used to be a great pub called the Elephant and Castle. I think the reports of Yonge Street's death are greatly exaggerated, as you can see. It's still one of the major spots to be in the city. Certainly not for everyone. And as a skyscraper fan, I'm quite excited to see a lot of developments like this go up. There's an iconic spot, sort of a remnant from the past. And just on the left is TMU University, formerly known as Ryerson. I'll be doing a walk through there, I think, in the coming weeks.
There's a look.
It's certainly busy out here.
Where is that?
And this is Yonge and Dundas coming up. It looks like there might be something going on in the square. Maybe I'll cross over and take a look. I see a lot of signs. Looks like a rally of some sort. And here's a Toronto institution. It's the Praise Jesus guy. Oh. Famous for his believe. That he just randomly belches out and scares the crap out of anyone who's unsuspecting walking by. So this is Dundas Square. It looks like it's a protest regarding the current situation in Iran. We'll go over and take a closer look in a sec. There's the Eaton Center. That guy is setting up for something serious. He's got a ring light. I think he's going to be doing 360 videos, probably of the vertical orientation, unfortunately. And I'll look north. Certainly a worthwhile cause. Isn't it absolutely insane that in 2022, not all of us are equal? All right, so, okay, maybe I'll just go south down the west side of Yonge and then I'll cross over, or down the east side, I'll cross back over to the west side at Shooter or so.
Upstairs too. I'll get over there, bro. Nice.
There's the Mervish Theater. There's a number of major performance venues along this stretch. Hence the comparison to Broadway isn't that crazy. This used to be a Foot Locker, which relocated to just north of Yonge and Dundas. And a few days ago, there was a big fire in the parking structure of the Eaton Center. I don't know if that's what this construction hoarding is for. And here is Shooter Street. And a look over at Massey Hall. So I'll cross over here. So this car honked at that car because it didn't run over that lady with the baby stroller. What? There's the Massey Tower on the left. And it is 6:40. I have scheduled a live stream tonight for 8 p.m. I'll be doing that one from home, so I'm going to hop on the subway as soon as this is done. But feel free to let me know your thoughts on Yonge Street. Is it in a state of decay? Or do you think the blandification of at least the retail environment is a good thing for some reason? I don't think you could actually argue that, unless you're all about having corporate overlords. So here's Queen, and this is where we'll find Queen subway station. All right, I said I would walk down to King. We might as well finish that original mission.
It's really nice. You should go for like.
The character of Yonge is quite different in this area as we have entered the north end of the financial district. And this is Richmond Street. There goes someone on an e-scooter. Speaking of closed up storefronts, this used to be an A&W where I went to lunch quite often when I worked in the financial district. Sad to see that close. They were a casualty of the pandemic. And of course, city cannabis. There's been reports of more and more cannabis shops shutting down, including some that just recently opened. I think we've probably hit market saturation on those. No, it must be a high margin project or product. The stores I go to never have more than one or two other customers in them at a time. And I never spend more than, what, $10, $15, $20 at a time? Can't imagine it's that lucrative. There's another one, Canton North. There's a pet peeve of mine, people fanning out and blocking the entire sidewalk. And this is Adelaide, and you get a pretty neat high-rise corridor. And we're almost at King Street, the final destination. I went out earlier today and I saw a lot of people in like winter coats and that sort of thing. My watch says 14 degrees, but it's not that windy, so it doesn't really feel that cold. That Chipotle is new, it doesn't even appear to be open. And this Starbucks has been a staple at this intersection for quite a while. There we go, we have made it to King. I hope you enjoyed this one, starting in the Yorkville neighborhood or just north of Bay and Bloor at Bay Station, heading over to Yonge Street and then south all the way down to King. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. If you wish to support the channel, there's links to my Patreon and YouTube channel membership in the description. And I have an Instagram account at Johnny Strides. And there's a super thanks button appearing below the video as well. All right, thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.